Already got her spotlighted, Rick.
Oh, you already have her spotlighted? Okay,
Mhm.
great.
So I'll let Kayla introduce herself.
Cool. Hi, everybody. Nice to see a lot of smiling faces and a couple of other phone numbers that are on and listening. So as Rick said, my name's Kayla Ferguson. I'm with the Davis Phinney Foundation for Parkinson's, living out here. Our headquarters are based in Denver, or a little bit north of Denver, although we're a national organization. So for the last 2 years, I've been managing Sidekicks, which is a storytelling program, and that's what I'm going to share about. I thought I would start by telling you a little bit about me so that I'm not just a super strange face talking to you on the camera, and you know kind of how I got here and my interest in this program and why I really care about it deeply. So as I mentioned, I'm here in Denver where our headquarters are located. I went away for a bit. I went to school out in California. I studied at Pepperdine, if anyone's heard of it. It's a pretty small liberal arts school out in Malibu. So I did that. I kind of jokingly or not jokingly tell people I drank the Los Angeles Kool-Aid and ended up studying film. I've always had a passion for storytelling. In fact, when I was in second grade, I told my mom I wanted to be the world's youngest published author, which didn't happen, but it's never too late to write. So I'm still working on that. And so I studied film out in California. I ended up working in some freelance film production, then at a talent agency out there. Which was great. I learned a lot, but the business of Hollywood was quite exhausting. So after about 5 years, I just wasn't really interested in doing the business side of it anymore. I wasn't sure quite what to do. All of my training, all of my professional experience was in film. So I decided I was going to save up as much money as I could, which was about $6,000, not very much, and just go travel the world for a year. And I bought a plane ticket to Japan, and then I went Thailand, India, Europe, South America, and over the course of a year did 26 different countries. And as I said, I had $6,000 when I left to travel, so I didn't have any when I came back, and told my dad I was going to come live in the basement once I finished my trip. And that's what ultimately led me back to Denver, where I now am coming up on, that's actually 5 years almost that I got back. And from there, I started doing some corporate event planning for a local business here that had a whole entertainment division. Saw it was fun, it's fun to throw parties for people, but I still, kind of like when I was in Hollywood, felt like there was something missing kind of in the fulfillment area. It just wasn't fulfilling for me to lose sleep over centerpieces, for a party for 500 people. And I just wanted to do something a little bit more meaningful. And that's when I started looking around and saw an event program with the Davis Phinney Foundation, based here in Denver. That was in October of 2018, and I've been with them ever since. So this Sidekicks program is what I've been doing for the last 2 years, and what I want to tell you guys a little bit about today. Let's see. And I guess too, I'll share a little bit for those of you who don't know about Davis Phinney. This is coming a little bit later in the presentation, but he, I guess is a celebrity, kind of like Michael J. Fox, although he had his notoriety in the sports world. He was an Olympic cyclist for a long time, won numerous medals, was known as the cash register for how well he brought in money to the teams that he was on. And he was diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's when he was 40. And that was coming up on about 20 years ago that happened. And him and his wife, Connie, who's also an Olympian, recognized that there was just very little dissemination of information about Parkinson's. When they were looking for it, it was so hard for them to find the resources they were looking for, which was kind of the impetus for starting the Davis Phinney Foundation about 20 years ago. And now we've grown from, a small staff of 2 people. We have almost 20 working at our foundation now. And that's a little bit about us, for those of you who may or may not have been familiar with who the Davis Phinney Foundation is. So now I will actually share my screen. I have some visuals to go along with my presentation. Let's see. All right. Can everybody see that? Cool. All right.
Yes.
Perfect. Great. So what is Sidekicks? Sidekicks was a program that we started back in 2018. So this is kind of our 3rd year of running this program. And it started as a intergenerational storytelling program. So we would go around the country and connect support groups, sometimes exercise groups, various Parkinson's groups with youth organizations around the country, sometimes youth groups or sports teams or Boy Scouts or school groups. And we would have 4 different sessions that we would bring them together and get them connected through creative storytelling projects. And it was really wonderful. We did about 20 programs between 2018 and 2019 from San Diego all the way to New Jersey over on the East Coast. And we had, grand plans for 2020 to continue those live in-person programs. And then, like everyone experienced, COVID happened. So we really spent a lot of time this year kind of readjusting the program to fit into this virtual world. So really, you can see on the slides here, I'll read it for just a moment. Sidekicks was created with a powerful purpose to help curb isolation commonly felt by people with Parkinson's. So the program includes a series of interactive projects designed to be fun and offer inspiring ways to share your most meaningful moments that go beyond the Parkinson's affecting you or, the person you live with that might be living with Parkinson's. So the way that we've adapted this for 2020 is really intended for people to be able to participate in it anywhere at any time. Kind of where it gets, I colloquially call it virtual sidekicks. And so I'm going to go further into the presentation and tell you some of the art projects and what we've included kind of in the materials that we send to people. Before I do that, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Lundbeck. They are the pharmaceutical company that sponsors this program for us. They were really instrumental in getting this program going and bringing Davis Phinney on board to be the nonprofit that helped to run it around the country. And so I like to give them a shout out just because of their support for this country. If you don't know Lundbeck, they have headquarters in Europe and also in Chicago, and all of their pharmaceutical remedies are specifically for brain health, from schizophrenia to Parkinson's, and then a variety of others as well. So just giving them a quick shout out because this program wouldn't be possible without them. And then I shared about the Davis Phinney Foundation already, so I'll head on to our next slide. Let's see. All right, so when we did this program in person, we would usually break it up into 4 different sessions, usually 1-hour sessions throughout a series of weeks. And each session would be a different art project that youth and people with Parkinson's whom we paired together would do together. And these were the activities included in those sessions. Story prints, ideascapes, and friendship rocks. And all of these art activities had a particular theme around them that were really intended to spark conversation questions and really get the youth and the people with Parkinson's paired together talking about their life and what is meaningful to them. So we still have all of these activities in these activities. What's different is we're not doing this in person in groups around the country. Anyone who's interested in participating can simply contact me, and I send an art box with all of the materials needed to do all of these activities right to your doorstep. So you can participate at any time, whether it's around your kitchen table or on a Saturday morning or over Zoom with your support group, whenever works for you. So I wanted to share a little bit more too about the art projects, since there's kind of limited information on this screen. Story prints is one of the first activities that we include materials for in the box. And it's really, it's very simple. It's just a handprint activity where we have participants write on their left hand things that they're grateful for, and on their right hand things that they're hopeful for. And we found that this is a really great way to kind of spark memories that come up from the past, help people really talk about what they're excited about for the future, and really get connected over kind of the basic human experience of gratitude and hopefulness. That being said, these are just suggestions for how people participate in the activity. I'm going to go through some pictures later, and you'll see that people have taken a lot of creative liberties with how they go about doing these activities, and that is highly, highly encouraged. This is simply meant to be kind of a jumping off point for doing art, doing something creative, and connecting with those whom you're doing it with. Ideascapes is the other activity that we send materials for, and at the end of this presentation, I'll actually show the materials that come in the box. And that's meant to kind of expand upon the story prints activity, and as you can see on the slide, build stronger relationships with people by learning what's beyond the surface. So for this, we send watercolor paint, You're obviously more than welcome to use the markers, crayons, colored pencils, everything that comes along in the box. And really, kind of, I like to describe it as, paint your ideal world. What is beyond the surface of what people see about your life, and all the things that you'd love to create, that you appreciate about the past. It's kind of a different take on story prints in terms of it being a watercolor activity as opposed to handprints. So it's personally my favorite, mostly because I love watercolor painting. So Friendship Rocks is the final activity. And this one really originated from the pairing of two people who previously didn't know each other, got to do art projects with each other over a number of sessions, and really got to learn something about the other person. So really it's, the theme is kind of embracing the positive social interaction that you get meeting people who are different from you. In this case, it might be people that you live with, but learn something new about. And, finding words or pictures or images that really encapsulate what you've learned about that program or about that person. So for this activity, we send Mod Podge, which is kind of like a glue to glue stuff to the rocks. We send word stickers that are a bunch of adjectives that could describe the people in your life. And then we encourage everyone to find magazines that get sent to their home, or newspapers with images or titles that you could cut out and put on this rock to kind of create all the things that you remember about the person you're doing this activity with in a rock form. And it's just a really fun way to visually describe the person you're doing the activities with. So you might still be wondering exactly how we do this in a virtual setting, since the program was kind of intended to be done in a group, maybe with people that you have not met before. And so I put together a couple of different pictures of all of these activities to explain some of the different ways people have participated in these activities, and give you some thoughts on ways you might be interested in participating if the creative pursuits of this activity call to you. So here's an example of story prints. That picture's a little bit blurry, I think. Sorry about that. I pulled it off the internet and it got a lower quality. But it was back at the beginning of COVID. We had a group reach out to us from Tyler, Texas, wanting to incorporate this actually into their group setting prior to a Rocksteady boxing class. So I sent a box of materials for about 12 people out to Tyler, Texas, and they all got together before Rocksteady Boxing and did the story prints activity. And you can see some of the art that they created there, some of the creative liberties they took with the project in terms of the decoration of the hands, what they wanted to write on it. And these were two people that participated together and got to learn more about each other through the story prints. So this is, I don't know if anyone's still going to exercise classes. I definitely want to throw into this presentation that I by no means want to encourage people getting together simply for this activity. I want everyone to keep like health and safety as front of mind. But if you have a group that you're getting together and feel safe with already, this can be a great thing to introduce to kind of, bring in a new dynamic to the group. So we also had a group at the very beginning of the year participate out in New Jersey. And one of the woman on the right is Stacy. She's actually one of our Davis Phinney Foundation ambassadors. And she has a sister that works with, she's a second grade teacher. So they actually got all of the people in her exercise group at the CATS Jewish Community Center out there on Zoom with her sister's students and did the story prints activities together. Even though they were apart when they were doing the activities, Stacy and her sister got together and put together this whole board of hands that they all did for story prints to, remember what they did. I think her sister's now displaying it in her classroom for when students are allowed to head back into school. So that's another option. If there is a youth group in your life that you're involved with, by all means, they're more than welcome to participate. Although we have found it can be challenging with youth groups during COVID and parents trying to work and take kids to school to coordinate that. But if you already have that group, by all means, we encourage the intergenerational participation in your community. Let's see. next I have a couple examples of ideascapes, and you'll see that this isn't necessarily a watercolor painting. It's more done with crayons and colored pencils, which I like to emphasize because, again, all the recipes we have for how the activities are done are totally meant to just be a suggestion, and we really encourage people to participate in whatever way speaks the most to them. So this was a group out in Chicago. There was 3 different couples all living separate from each other, and I sent boxes of activities to all 3 couples, and then they got together over Zoom and did the projects together over various weeks when they could coordinate to get together. So that's yet another option. If you have other couples in your life or other individuals in your support group, I can send materials to anyone who wants to participate. And you guys can coordinate on your own time when you'd want to do this over Zoom, or we've had people get the activities, do them on their own in their own time, and then just talk about it over a Zoom call. Really, whatever works best for you and however feels most comfortable given how much time we're all spending in front of screens these days. So that's another example. Let's see. This one was just completed a couple of weeks ago. We had a group in Arizona reach out. It was through the Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center. The Hispanic Outreach Coordinator wanted to do these activities with her Spanish-speaking support group. So we modified the activities a little bit to fit the dynamic of her group. But this is one of the watercolor paintings that came out of the group. They were still comfortable as a support group getting together in person and doing these activities. But again, I don't encourage or endorse people getting together just for these activities because I really want to keep health and safety front of mind. But if you have a group you're already getting together with, by all means, continue on. So let's see. All right, this is the third activity, friendship rocks. And you might be thinking, well, those don't really look like friendship rocks. But this was an especially fun story that I wanted to share. This was a woman out of Knoxville, Tennessee, who found some of the activities. We've posted them online, and I can include a link to where to just download the activities online if you don't want a whole box. And she downloaded these activities. She decided she was going to do the Friendship Rocks activity with her husband, and she had these neighbors. Actually, these are her neighborhood, or the young girls of her neighbors. She was not able to travel actually out here to Colorado to see her grandkids because of COVID. So she went over to her neighbors. She asked the girls if they'd be interested in doing, an acrylic art or a rock project with her. They said yes, and it turned into a whole summer of art activities. They did acrylic painting. They made, I think, fall wreaths. They did like a whole list. I can't even remember the name of all the activities that they did together. And then they helped lead a Tai Chi class for Nancy's support group. So they became really, really connected over a simple friendship rock project that she just reached out to see if the girls would be interested. And it turned into a friendship that maybe would never have happened if it wasn't for COVID and having to be creative with the ways we connect with people. So I share this one as well because there are tons of ways in which to engage with these activities. Really, the sky's the limit in terms of how it brings together those in your community and how you want to interact with people in your home or in your neighborhood as it's safe. So, and this, again, sorry for the quality of that picture. It looks like it downgraded a little bit after I put it in the presentation. But this is an example of kind of like a traditional friendship rock, I guess, as designed by the activity. And this was, we had a group in Staten Island recently reach out wanting to do just the friendship rock activity. So I sent 15 kits to 15 different homes out in Staten Island, and they all, during their support group time period, brought out the activities, did the friendship rocks together, and then showed, what they had created over the hour of doing this with their support group. So that's kind of a standard example, but there's tons of different, versions of these rocks that came to be out of the activities that they all did together. So those are a series of different ways people have participated in the program. It's certainly not the only way to do it, really. I like to emphasize that this is intended to just be an offering to people. It's intended to be, in addition, something that feels like it adds to your life and not something that's obligatory or gives you stress. And the other thing I like to point out is these activities, you don't have to have a single ounce of artistic blood in your body. Although as I was telling Beth and Rick, I personally believe everyone is creative and artistic. They just have to find the right way to express it. So the point of these is really just to have some creative expression, start a conversation, maybe share something about your life that doesn't come up in normal conversation in our day-to-day lives. So wherever your imagination takes you, I tell people to go with it. So now I want to, let's see. If you order, these are kind of the more logistical components of this program. If you do decide you want me to send a box to your home, this is what it looks like when it shows up on your doorstep, plus a mailing label. So it's a very easy FedEx box, hopefully not hard to miss. And I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen and share what the materials that we send are as related to these different activities. So. Can everyone see me again? Let me stop sharing my screen. There we go. So inside the FedEx box that I just put up on the screen, we send a whole variety of activities, and I'll do them in order from, story prints down to friendship rocks. Let's see. So in the box, we include, this is kind of just a welcome letter that talks a little bit about the program. It gives information like I just gave as kind of like a memory refresher, if that could be helpful for anybody. So that comes in there. And then we include what we call, recipe cards for all of these activities. And they look something like this. It mentions here, all the materials that you need for the project, kind of step-by-step instructions. If you want to follow them, again, you can do really whatever calls to you, but here's some instructions if that's helpful for anybody. And then we also include some conversation prompts at the bottom to, ask whoever, if it's your grandkids or your spouse or a neighbor, whoever you're doing the activities with, some conversation prompts that relate to the activity. So we have one of those for every single activity. This is very similar, but just for Ideascapes. And then we include an additional one for friendship rocks. So all of the materials and all of the instructions come in the box for you. We also include all of the paper you need, although some of these materials are ones people likely have laying around home. What's easier than just having it all put in a box in front of you. So we include everything you could need, including just some printer paper for the story prints activity, and some watercolor paper that go along with the watercolor paint. So you have that accessible to you. We also include, let's see, a pack of markers, a pack of crayons, and a pack of colored pencils that all come along mainly for the story prints activity, although people do choose to use them for a variety of activities. And who knows what they could be good for after the fact, there's tons to do with markers. We also send along washable paints, really simple paint palette, along with brushes. So you have a variety of different shapes of brushes you can use. And if you have, multiple people, there's multiple brushes for everybody to use. Let's see. We also, for the final activity, oh, I forgot these for story prints. We send along pencil and black fine print marker for hand tracing or whatever you want to use it for. So those come included as well. And then for the friendship rocks activity, we send scissors so you can cut out whatever you need from magazines or newspapers or whatever's laying around your home. We send this Mod Podge, which is basically just a clear glue that you can use to glue everything onto the rocks, and can be used with the brushes for the watercolor paint. And then we include a set of word stickers. These are a bunch of different adjectives, some sentences that might feel like they go along with whoever you're doing the activity with. So we send a couple of sheets of word stickers as well in the box. So these are the standard materials we send with everything. We do have a couple of different options in terms of how many materials you receive. Usually we send kits if you have 1 to 3 people in your home, maybe you and your spouse or you and 2 grandkids or something. If you have maybe a larger group that you get together with, again, if it's safe and if everyone's taken proper protocol for COVID, we can send a kit for 4 to 8 people. Or if you have a larger group, a support group that might be still getting together, if you can do so outside, we've had some groups do that. We can send materials for groups of 9 to 14. And so depending on what size kit you would like, the number of these materials in each kit simply increases based on how many you request materials for. And then the last thing I wanted to mention that I think is very important is that all of these can be sent at no cost to you. I mentioned Lundbeck at the beginning of the program. They are the sponsor for this program. And so all of these materials, yeah, as Rick said in the chat, all of it's free. There's no shipping cost. There's no cost for any of the materials. You can simply request them. They show up on your doorstep and you can use them for whatever you would like to use them for. This is truly meant to just be an offering to the community, to put some creative materials in people's hands and let them do what they would like to do with it. So let's see, I'm going to put in the chat some of the ways that you can, request these materials, because there are a couple of different options. Here in the chat is a link to our website where you can go on and we say like order a kit. And let me actually share my screen again and show you exactly how to do that. Let's see. All right, so here is the Davis Phinney Sidekicks website, which is the link that I just put in the chat. Can everyone
You might want to make it a little bit bigger, Kayla, if you can. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
A little better. So this is the link that I included in the chat. If you click on that, it will take you directly to this web page, which is on our website. And if you scroll down, well, here's some information about it. And if you scroll down, it's almost a little hidden kind of right now when you look at it on this big screen, but it says order a free Sidekicks project kit. And if you click on that, you can select how many people are going to be participating. So you can select one kit for 1 to 3 people. We've had some people, order multiple kits. Say they want to do one with their spouse, and then they also want to do something with some friends they get together with. They've ordered kits for 1 to 3 and 4 to 8, and I'm happy to send all of those, however many you'd like to order. So you choose how many you would like. You put your name and information down here, where it's getting sent to. Click order now, and it includes your address, of course, which is important. I do definitely need your address if I'm going to get a kit to your house, so make sure that's entered correctly. Click order now, and then it comes through to me. I see that it's been requested, and I get it in the mail within 1 to 2 days and have it on your doorstep within about 5 business days after requesting the kit. The other way, if you don't want to go through the process of ordering any of this stuff online, is to just contact me directly. You just send me an email or give me a phone call. We can get it sent to you that way. And so I will include my email here, and I believe Rick and Beth are also going to send out an email that will include some of this, but here's a way you can reach me if you don't want to go through the hassle of the order form. That's
Yes,
my
that's true.
email.
We'll also do it online.
Yeah. Yep. So let's see. Those were most of the other things I wanted to mention. Oh, I did have Beth actually. I'm using her as an example because she just emailed me. She had me send a kit to her as well as to some of her family members' homes. So if you'd like to have a kit sent to you, say maybe you're not getting together with your family for Thanksgiving or over the holidays, but you might be doing FaceTime or Zoom or whatever that is, I can send materials to your house, and I can send materials to your kid's house, your grandkid's house, wherever they are in the United States, so long as you give me their address. So if that is something that appeals to you, I'm happy to do that as well. We don't really have a limit on what people would like to order, who they'd like to have it sent to. So all different options for how to engage with this and with your family, which is the most important thing over the holidays when we all really want to be connected to each other. So, okay, so Beth did ask a question. How do you share projects with me or Davis Phinney? Yeah, that's awesome. We love to get pictures of people's activities that they did. That's like kind of the most fun part, is to see what came out of it. I loved getting Nancy's story and seeing the pictures of the girls. So if you feel so inclined, again, this is not at all required for participation, but if you want to take pictures, if you want to share pictures of the end product, projects with us, you can send them directly to me at that email address. We also, on our website, we have a place where you can submit, you know, like a little story with some pictures if you'd like, that's on the same website link that I sent, and you can send them through that way. Although most people have found my email to be the easiest way to send those through. And I will warn you, if we sometimes will post some of these on social media with permission. If you only want to share them with Davis Phinney, you don't want them shared on social media, totally fine. Just say we would prefer not to have these shared. Then we just get to look at them and enjoy them on our own. Or if you do kind of want to show even just the art projects, you don't have to be in the picture. You don't have to have your face in the picture. We might request that we share them on our social media just to show people what's available out of doing the activities. But we won't do anything if you're not comfortable with it. We just like to see the end project, the end products for our own joy, really. So I think that was the majority of my presentation. I'm hoping I didn't forget anything, but now I'd love to open it up if anyone has any questions, if anything was unclear, if I went through anything too quickly, or if you want to see any part of the presentation again. Now I am here and available for some questions.
All right, so all you have to do is unmute yourself in order to ask a question.
Or you can type it in the chat as well.
Or either way, we're reading the chat all the time. But for those of you who are slow typers or prefer the oral, you know, then do you supply the rocks as Carol?
Yes, that was a good question that Beth asked me as well. We do send rocks. I didn't used to. However, I sent some kits to Philadelphia saying you could walk around the city and find some, because here in my neighborhood in Colorado, we have tons of rocks. We're in the Rocky Mountains, right? And she was like, that's funny. We don't have a lot of rocks in our very urban environment. So I can absolutely send rocks. If you have a ton in your yard and you want it, those are available to you, that's certainly easier for FedEx and for me. You can just make a note when you email me. However, I don't want it to be like a challenge if people want to do that activity and can't find rocks. So yes, I can absolutely put those in the mail if that is helpful.
And what is the email address again?
It is, I'll spell it out for you. It's K is my first name, Kayla, K. And then my last name is Ferguson, which is F as in Frank, E-R-G-U-S as in Sam, O, and then N as in Nancy.
Thank you.
At, DPF, which is short for Davis Phinney Foundation, .org.
And just as a reminder, we'll also put this information on our website, which is pnmd.net. You know, and we'll have that up within 24 hours. That and a recording of this presentation so that you can review it if you want.
Thank you.
All right, so
Sounds like it could be a fun Thanksgiving family virtual activity.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've encouraged even my own family members, even if they're not living with Parkinson's, to, you know, connect with their kids who maybe are in a different state, you know, through some of these art projects. You know, it really has a lot of versatility. So like I said, be creative, find whoever you would like to connect with. I think the holidays are some of the perfect time to engage with this. So.
Yeah, I had to ask Kayla this several times. Are you sure everything is free?
Yes, I know it's kind of strange.
I mean, even if we
like
ship it to multiple family homes?
Yep, I know I understand that question being asked a lot, because I know when I see something is free, I'm like, what's the catch? You know, so I totally get that question. But really, you know, we have a budget for this program that was intended for live events that we did not get to use at all this year. And Lundbeck really still wants to reach as many people with this as they can, as does Davis Phinney, of course. And so all of the shipping, all of the materials, all of the everything is totally free. There's you won't get an invoice later to pay. You won't get anything later. It's totally charged on my company credit card, and that's it. So I know it sounds too good to be true, and maybe this is one of those times where maybe it actually is, but totally free for everybody.
So is any of that information with the Lundbeck organization?
Say that one-
Address, name, any of their personal information, name, address shared with the donor?
It's not. If people
Okay.
want information at Lundbeck, I can certainly supply that, but we don't share emails with them, and we don't necessarily include their information. I'm kind of the primary contact person. So really they're kind of just the background financiers of it, which is great, but we don't share any information. You won't start getting all sorts of Lundbeck newsletters or anything like that.
Okay.
That's private information.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Double checking.
Yeah. And Beth made a quick comment in the chat to me that says, if you use your own rocks from your yard, she would recommend washing them before applying Mod Podge, which is great advice, because if they have dirt, it makes it a little bit harder. So if you do pick up your own rocks, washing them will just make the process a little less maddening if you can't get things to stick. So great advice, Beth.
Otherwise, there's dirt or powder on the rocks. Is that right?
Yeah, usually that being out in nature, they get all sorts of grime on them.
Now, some people have had questions about activities, like, when they sit down with all of these art supplies in front of them, or with their grandchildren via FaceTime or Zoom or any which way they're doing it. They want to know, what are the guidelines? They draw a blank. What do they do when they're drawing a blank with all these art supplies in front of them?
Yeah. And I understand that. Sometimes as someone who likes to write, they say the blank page is like the hardest thing to sit in front of. It's almost like the hardest thing to do is get started, which is why, let me move some of these materials on these recipe cards. We have included some like step instructions just to get people started, if that can be helpful. Let's see.
Can you show us an example?
Yeah, so here, number 1 and number 2 say identify who you want to participate with, gather the materials. The materials are already there, and likely you have someone in your home to participate with. It's a little hard to see, but number 3 says trace each of your hands and a bit of your wrist lightly with a pencil on the paper. So you can trace your hand, and then it says complete the project, sharing the things you are grateful for today, as well as your hopes. And so like what you're grateful for on the right hand, what you're hopeful for on the left hand, and then use the markers, colored pencils, crayons to decorate it and make it look like whatever you want. So that's like the starting point. And then, I usually find that once you get something on a paper, even anything, even just a hand tracing, that starts to get your brain kind of like creatively inclined, and things start coming out. And I will also say, these are the materials that we send, but I've seen people, if they have like yarn or a craft room or sequins or glitter or whatever, sometimes people have laying around a craft room, like my grandmother has like Michael's in her basement. Use whatever you want. If glitter what gets you inspired, by all means use glitter. The markers are not mandatory at all. But all of our activities do have that, how to start with friendship rocks, maybe how to start with ideascapes, some of the first things, some of the first questions you can ask people to get some ideas, just to get the creative juices flowing. Because yes, a blank page can be very intimidating. I know that.
Well, it strikes me that this is a perfect activity to bring a family together over the Thanksgiving, Christmas season.
I would like to agree. Yeah. And it's and even if maybe the art projects are hard to do if you have like a lot of food on the table, even just some of the questions can be really, really great. I was telling Rick this when we were chatting about this. I've taken some of these prompts and almost use them when I talk with my grandfather. I go and do like a monthly story time with him, although we've had to cut that short because of COVID, and he's 87 with some lung challenges. So we're being very, very careful. But for a couple of years, I would go over monthly and do a story time with him. And I would sometimes bring prompts kind of like this with me just to get the conversation started. And I learned such amazing things about my my grandfather and what it was, you know, his experience of living here in Denver, and various things that happened during World War II. And I didn't know that he worked in a prison for a while when he wanted to take a break from teaching. And they used him as an example of what happens in like the electric chair back when that was a thing, and how they didn't actually, you know, do anything, but he was sitting there and they were using him as a demonstration of what would happen. And all these great stories that came out, sometimes of just asking, you know, what are you grateful for? What's a memory attached to some gratitude that you have? And then stories would just, you know, spill out of his mouth. And these are things I never would have known about my grandfather, who I've grown up with for 30 years. There's just such a simple act of asking one of these questions. And we didn't do the story prints. I didn't like trace my hands. I was actually recording him on a video. But I say that to say even just the story prompts can be a great way to learn about people and connect with people. And then if you want to, you know, put that on paper and show it visually with colors and with art, then it's even better. So that's just a fun example from my own life. So.
All right, so if you have, I plan to send these to 3 of my children, adult children who have children.
Mhm.
So I'm going to send a box of 3 and a box of 5 and a box of 5 and plus 1 to me. And
Perfect.
normally I would feel guilty about trying to do that, as if I were taking advantage. But isn't that what this program is about?
Yeah, that's truly its whole goal, is just to give people in a creative outlet. Especially, I think right now it's especially great because I fall into this trap myself of wanting to do so many artistic things that I love, but also getting trapped behind a computer screen because that's how you talk to people, right? And so I think this is such a great way to get out of the virtual world and actually put something actually on paper. And that's what we really want it to be for you know, the Parkinson's community, for those that are connected to them, truly as just a community offering to get people connected over the holidays. You know, the more the better. Like that's our goal, is to reach people and have them, you know, I know loneliness and isolation has always been a problem for lots of people in this country, and it's even worse now because of COVID. So anything we can do that puts things in front of people that, you know, brings a little, maybe a bit of light to a very challenging year, that's what we're here for. So yeah, no, don't feel like you're taking advantage. This is literally our goal, is to send it to as many people as possible at no cost to anybody. That's it.
As you've made the transition from meeting in person with groups to using Zoom as an example, what challenges have you overcome? Or what stories can you share with us?
Yeah, I think, well, in the very beginning, there was definitely, we had a lot of people calling, asking, you know, how do I get a Zoom account? How do I log into Zoom? So that was kind of like at the beginning of COVID, one of the main things I know even just as a foundation, we put out a lot of stuff of here's how to use Zoom and how you can get connected to people that way. So that was, I think, one of the first major hurdles. And now that people are a little, like, the whole world is more Zoom savvy, that removes a huge barrier. With artistic stuff, it is a little bit more challenging because I think art is oftentimes very collaborative, like inherently, and having a screen between you can feel like a barrier. I have had people share, though, that, you know, this is a really great way to still have someone sitting across the table from you, so to speak. You know, you guys are across the table from me, but also not having to be totally just dialed into the computer all the time. We can talk, you can actually put something tangible on paper and, you know, still share it with people through the camera. So I think there was to answer your question, I think there was sometimes a little bit of resistance to, well, how am I supposed to do art through Zoom? Like, that doesn't really make any sense. But if you take the approach that this is really just meant to be a conversation starter and be a way to express gratitudes, hopes, something like that, then all of a sudden it becomes way easier to just share what's being created and be a little bit of like a step away from a normal Zoom meeting that if you do enough of them will make you very, very tired. So.
I have a question here from Janice Ransley. Have you found that these activities are that some of these activities are more popular than others? Where, what, etc.?
Yeah, I would say it kind of depends on, the individual in the group. We've had some groups only want to do the story prints activities. Maybe those are the easiest with just markers and crayons and colored pencils. And so it's really easy to clean up, maybe a little bit easier than watercolor paint. And then we've had some groups just do the friendship rock activity because that seemed, maybe unique away from putting something on a piece of paper. And then we've had some groups do all three, do variations of all three. So I would say it really depends on what you're interested in drawing, what you're interested in creating, how much space you have, where you're doing it at. It's really varied across groups. And if you do one and decide you don't like it, you just go on to the next one. Be like, okay, well, I don't really like handprints. Let's play with rocks instead.
How about different parts of the country?
Yeah,
You have
question.
to demand more in the south and the north, or east and west, or?
Yeah, we did. I'm trying to think. When out in Staten Island, they did just the Friendship Rocks activity. But I think that was mostly just the choice of the support group leader that thought that would be kind of like a fun, unique thing to do. And it was down in the South that they just did the handprints, but that I think was because they were doing it before like a boxing class. So having as little cleanup as possible was probably really desirable. And story prints is probably the easiest to clean up. It's just some markers and some crayons. And all the other groups have actually participated in all three in various time frames, sometimes one a week, sometimes they'll do all of them during, a couple hour meeting or something. So I don't know if I've seen like a regional pattern. It's more so, is Mod Podge annoying to clean up before a boxing class? If so, maybe don't do that one. But I don't think I've seen a regional trend necessarily.
Have you had any experience with doing it with a large group, like a caregiving group of, say, 20 people?
Well, when we did live in-person programs, we certainly had groups of 20 people. We would oftentimes try to bring about 10 youth and about 10 people with Parkinson's together, sometimes up to 15 of each together. And it was almost actually a perfect size group because you can put people in partners together really well. You could do even groups of 3 with that size if people are more comfortable with that. I think so long as you request the right number of materials and there's enough for everybody, that size group could be perfect. We did that very frequently with our in-person events.
And would you say it's something that you could do in 30 minutes as opposed to,
absolutely.
without a real time crunch to stress anybody out? But I mean, if you didn't want to spend a whole hour doing it.
Totally. And we actually, on our recipe cards, we have like the total project time. We have it listed at 15 minutes. You could take much longer if you want, but these are intended to be, kind of fun and short and sweet. They can be longer, of course, talk as long as you want to, but we usually would do these entire projects in 1 hour time increments that included introductions, that included wrap-up questions with our in-person participants, and it included 15 or 20 minutes where we would do Parkinson's education for the youth, which really isn't necessarily a part when we're working with just Parkinson's groups, but we had to make sure we fit in the education component, the activity, the setup and cleanup, and we intended it all to be done in about an hour. So you could absolutely do 15, 20 minutes of the projects and not feel like you're super duper time crunched.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We have 2 other questions that have come in so far. Let's start. The first, asked by Carol, is do we send a picture of the finished product to you? And I guess the follow-up would be how?
Yes, I would. In the email that Rick sends out, there will be my email. And so sending that via email to me is most definitely the easiest way. And then I can, look at it and we can decide if we want to share it out, especially if you would love to have it shared out on our social media, definitely let us know that. And I can work with our marketing team. But the best way is probably just to send me an email, and we'll get it worked out that way.
What about sending you a picture via your cell phone?
That works too. Yeah. That's why my cell phone, because sometimes it is easier to text a picture than it is to put it in an email. I know I find it easier to do it that way.
Mhm.
So yeah, if you want to text me, just when you send the picture, also just say this is blank, my name from wherever, just so I have context of who might be sending me that picture. But yes, absolutely text me if you'd like.
Now we have another question, which is from Kathy. If you had a group of around 5 school-age children, I'm thinking of doing one a week. How much time do you think for one of the projects? And then,
That's great to have
Mhm.
children involved. I love that. I would say, 20, they're 5. How old are they? How old are the children?
yeah, Kathy, how old are they?
They are fourth through sixth grade.
Okay, cool. So they, I asked because there's usually, I've found a very large difference in attention span between like a first grader and a fourth grader.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's why I asked.
Yeah,
I would say kind of what I mentioned before, anytime between 15 and 30 minutes, I think
perfect.
would be ample amount of time. And if you wanted to go longer, of course, you can decorate
Right.
all day, but that would be
Right.
my guesstimate.
Okay, thank you.
Is it okay to pass this information around to others who may not have attended today's presentation?
Oh, yes. Yes. Feel free to send them this recording, forward them my email. My email is also on our Davis Phinney website if someone finds themselves there. Yes, we want this to be a community outreach initiative that reaches as many people as it can. So send it along to anyone you would like. If you know people living in different states that might like this, if you know other support groups, if whoever, definitely pass it along. I'm happy to chat with anybody.
Well, I know parents or grandparents who are helping do homeschooling with their kids, in a virtual environment. And this seems to me to be a perfect type of activity that they could do to break up the day.
Totally. Yeah, like I said, I've actually mentioned this to my cousin who has kids and has been homeschooling them basically and trying to figure out what to do because they've gone to the park they can only do that so many times and now it's getting cold here. So yeah, even if it doesn't necessarily have to be only people with Parkinson's, obviously that's what our foundation does, but this is an activity that can really serve anybody. And if its intention is to help curb isolation and give people kind of an outlet or inlet, I guess, into other people's experiences, by all means, definitely I'm happy to send these kits along.
Well, fabulous.
Great.
All right, are there any other questions? This is a good time. Feel free to ask and we will answer. All right,
And if you
so
think of questions after this, because I oftentimes get off a
absolutely.
phone call, I'm like, oh, I should have asked. Definitely, you can call or email me. I'm accessible and available. So if you think of anything, you have my contact information, just send it on over.
All right, so just to recap some of the important things. If people want to have you ship multiple kits to their family or close friends, that's fine.
Totally fine. I just need correct addresses. That's the main thing. That's all.
Right.
It's totally fine.
That information does not get shared with anyone else.
It does not. Nope.
Okay. And it's all 100% free, including the free shipping.
Exactly. Yeah, totally 100% free. No, literally, there's no way we can collect money from you because we just send them and then it's over. So there's no cost, no obligation, no, we don't share your information. I know it's like how is this so good to be true? Because usually things come with strings attached. But you have my word, it costs nothing. We do not share your information. We just want this to reach people and give them, some connective opportunities over the holidays.
So as we share pictures with you of these activities, the hands, the rocks, whatever, I
Mhm.
assume you'll put them up on your website or your Facebook page or something like that to just
Yep,
illustrate
unless
to
you
people,
don't-
here's something you can do.
Yep. We do love to share these, just to show what people have been doing with the program. And we know some people are uncomfortable with having stuff on social media. So if you don't want it shared and you just want to have it be like a private look at what we did, just tell me that and that's totally fine. Don't let it stop you from sending it either, because I just love to see what people do.
Can you put up your contact information slide again?
Sure.
And obviously you need to share the screen. This way, if people want to actually write it down, you can write it down as well. While she's doing that, I'm just going to remind people that a full recording of this presentation will be on the pnmd.net website and available to all.
Great.
And in addition, there will be the PowerPoint presentation, including this.
Yep.
And the phone number, just as a reminder, is her cell so that you can send pictures.
Yep. Yeah. And if you prefer to like text instead of call, you can text me. That's totally fine. I like to text as well. Just give me context for who you are. Say, hey, this is blank from blank. So I know who I'm talking to. That's all.
Thank you so much. This is great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really fun. It's been so wonderful to, just see how people have been able to engage with this. And like in Nancy in Tennessee, she came like a new grandmother to her neighbors, which never,
Neighbors, right.
yeah, which is really, those stories are just, they never get old. That's why I love doing this.
Yeah, you have a very satisfying job, I would say.
Yeah, way more satisfying than corporate Hollywood, I can tell you that much. Yeah.
Great.
Well, this has been really wonderful. So let's see, let's do, we'll stop sharing, and this brings us to the end of our presentation for the day.
Thank you
We
very
hope
much.
you have enjoyed our Lunch and Learn. We'll be doing our Lunch and Learn series once a month. The next time will be approximately the third Wednesday in December. And we'll continue, of course, into January, February, etc. And all of these are not just for people with Parkinson's, but also for their caregivers and for others. I mean, for example, if you know somebody who you think is isolated, this is a great icebreaker for them.
Mhm.
Feel free to share it, because that's what this is about. Bringing us together in a time of crisis and just making things better.
Yep.
All right, well, thank you all very much for joining. So I'm going to end the
Thank you.
presentation. Any
Thank you,
questions?
Kayla. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank you for
you.
having me, guys. It was
Thank you very
wonderful to
much.
chat with you.
Excellent presentation.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
very good.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I'll look forward to hearing from some of you and getting some kits in the mail.
Excellent. Thanks again, Kayla. It was great.
Yes, thank you, guys. I will talk to you all soon.
Okay, good.
Bye.
Bye.